Well, ActivePipe community, thanks for joining us here today. Today I'm joined with ActivePipe's product manager, Nathan McKinnon, and our global marketing lead, Harry Marsden, to discuss some of the changes that are ahead of us on the Apple iOS front. We thought it's a great opportunity to showcase how we're thinking ahead about adapting to the changes that are happening in our ecosystem. For some of you that may not be aware, Apple are implementing some privacy changes that would, for example, could make it difficult for us to identify if someone opens an email. So, Nathan will be here today to demonstrate how we're proactively tackling some of these challenges. And I wanted to highlight that, at ActivePipe, we're a team of 107 people, just dedicated to being the best in the world at doing one thing, not just okay at doing lots of things. And, to be the best in the business at lead nurturing, we need to stay ahead of the curve, and you rely on us for that. And as users, we want you to know and feel comfortable that, in the background, ActivePipe are being proactive across all of these changes, so you don't have to worry about it. We've dealt with lots of these changes in the past. There was a massive amount of work that went into us in the UK market complying with the GDPR rollout, for example. So, we thought with this recent big change that's happening with Apple iOS and the privacy side of things, why not showcase to you guys some of the work that we're doing and the logic that goes behind, some of these changes in our platform. So without further ado, I thought I'll pass on over to Nathan, who's going to step you through, what the product team are doing here at ActivePipe to make sure your experience will be the best it can be with all of the upcoming changes.
Cool, thanks, Ash. Okay, so I'm going to start with just really walking through the actual change itself, and just explain what's changed and how it actually works. So, as Ash mentioned, Apple recently have released a new feature called Mail Privacy Protection. So this was announced just recently in their WWDC event last month. And what they're doing is they're gradually rolling it out across their different devices. So as of today, this feature is available in Apple, the iOS 15 version on mobile and iPad. Basically what happens if you install this update, this iOS update, the next time you open your Mail app, you'll get the prompt that is up here on the screen. And it's basically asking if you want to opt into the Apple Mail Privacy Protection feature. The plan is that they'll be rolling it out across other devices, but they're yet to release that yet. So Mac OS, the native Mail app on Mac, will also have this feature, and we're expecting that to land somewhere later this year. So at this stage, it's in a few of their devices, but we'd expect over the next few months it'll be available across all of them. So what this does is basically what Apple are doing, they're masking users' IP addresses. So that means that we're unable to track people across different services. So your IP address essentially follows you around the internet across different platforms. Apple are preventing that within their Mail client. It also masks the location of the consumer. But the really big piece at the end here is it prevents senders from seeing when someone's opened an email. And that's what we'll spend most of our time talking about today. So I want to go into a bit of detail on how it works. So basically what Apple are doing is Apple are going to pre-download all images within an email. So just imagine once an email goes out, Apple will receive it and they'll look for every image in that email, and they'll save those images to their servers. Now what this means is that's also capturing tracking pixels. So basically today, how tracking works is each consumer will get a unique pixel, one by one pixel that encodes their identity. So what we listen for, as a provider, is when that image gets downloaded, we understand that Bob just opened his email. What's happening is Apple's pre-downloading all of those pixels. So now it's looking like pretty much as soon as the email is sent, Bob's opened his email, but so has everyone else. So we're seeing Apple, they're going to download everyone's images at once. Now, the other thing to consider here is what happens if someone comes back to their inbox and opens an email again later? It's essentially like refreshing your web page. You're going to re-download all the images again. But in this instance, because Apple's already downloaded them and got them stored on their servers, Bob's only going to request the image from Apple. So we're not also, providers are also not going to see that return open either. So that's basically how it works under the hood. Now, there's a few kind of caveats around this. The device actually has to be connected to Wi-Fi, and the mail app has to be running in the background for this to actually happen. So if if my device is off or I'm not on Wi-Fi, it's not going to pre-download my images. The other thing we've seen is that the caching actually only lasts for a few days, which means that if we're seeing opens maybe a week later, that's actually going to be a legitimate open. Apple's kind of not storing that image anymore, and the consumer's requesting it from us again. So one thing I just wanted to state around this though is this is a bit of a moving target. Sharing the information that we know today, but obviously everything here is subject to change. Apple can kind of change the behavior at any time, but this is the kind of state of things as they are today. So what does this mean? It means across any mail marketing platform, open rates are going to significantly increase. It's actually going to depend on geography, other things like industries. It's really about what percentage of that consumer base utilizes these types of devices. There is a pretty significant fluctuation, different areas, different markets, but you'll likely see a significant increase in open rates. And then anything leveraging location data is no longer going to work as effectively. And again, features built off engagement. So retargeting people that have open communications are going to generate kind of false positives. So it's not that people who are opening it, everyone who actually opened the email will receive, that follow-up, but you may get some false positives in people who haven't opened the email get a follow-up if you're leveraging those types of features across any kind of marketing software. So in terms of ActivePipe, what's actually impacted here? So there's a few places around our app that you'll notice some changes. So obviously anything reporting heavy will be, you'll see these changes more. So the campaign reports, obviously there's a few sections in there where you'll see inflated open rates. Dashboards, contact timelines, property overviews, and some of the campaign actions. I actually just want to jump out really quick and just point out some of these places in the app itself, just so we're all across the changes. So here I'm on the ActivePipe dashboard. So one example here, you can see on our dashboard, we present the open graph right in the center there. So basically what you're going to see here is an increased numbers of views. So if you're looking historically, you might start to see the views trending up in this graph. Touching on a contact profile as well. There's a few touch points on the contact profile where we look at opens. This graph here around engagements and their timeline. Things to note just while I'm on the contact profile here is it's really only any features or any information talking about open. So Smart Match, for example, you'll see no change across Smart Match. Anything talking about interactions, you'll see no changes across those either. So everything here is going to remain exactly the same. And then properties as well. So if you're looking at understanding how many people actually saw the property, that number is also going to be inflated. Okay, so now I just want to talk about what we're doing now around the problem, so or around the change. So it's kind of, like I said, it's a moving target here. So we're going to constantly keep our finger on the pulse, understand what Apple's doing, what they're thinking. We've got a few different experiments out there right now where we're essentially collecting data and using that to kind of plot our course forward. But some of the things that they're doing in the short term is really rethinking open. So you might have actually noticed as I was clicking through the app there, we're not actually using the language opens anymore, where we're calling things views. And the strategy here is it's around kind of reorienting our product around the more meaningful metrics. which I'll touch on in a bit more, and Harry's actually going to talk on as well. And the other piece is really educating. So the purpose of this webinar, we've also produced a really detailed blog post on this, which you can access through our website. So we just want to make sure our customers are really informed, understand what's going on. And then as we look towards the future, this is where we're really going to start to use that data we're collecting and make some changes in the product. So one thing is looking at our layouts and information hierarchy. So, you might have noticed on the dashboard, there's this big report that's talking about opens. What we want to be doing is making sure that we're actually surfacing the most meaningful metrics. Opens, it's a pretty consistent consensus across the industry that opens aren't a great metric to be really looking at anyway. So we want to make sure that we're surfacing the most valuable metrics to you. So interactions, obviously a really crucial metric. Finding trends in your data, and surfacing leads like high value contacts and those type of things is what we're really going to focus on, and make sure that our information hierarchy is really surfacing the most important things. Another thing that we're going to look at is retaining the derived or calculated metrics. So all of the raw data is going to be impacted. That's just the effect of this change. But the derived things like open rates, interaction rates, we're going to do work to try and improve those. We've got different ideas that we're exploring. We want to at least try to bring those back to some kind of representative metrics that you can actually utilize. And then lastly, it's around opportunities to innovate. So it's interesting with this change, it's actually some, we're getting new information that we didn't get, as well as information that's being removed. Like for example, as I mentioned earlier, this image, the Apple will only pre-fetch images if it's basically an active email. If the email is open, if the person's using it, that's the only time Apple's going to pre-fetch images. So we can start to think about ideas. Well, how can we leverage this new tool? Apple's basically telling us which emails are active and which emails aren't. So that's where we're going to really explore new opportunities to help you get a clearer picture of your database, who's actually a real consumer at the end of it, that email address, which ones are inactive. We can start to explore some great new functionality around that. So that's just kind of a brief overview of what we're thinking. And obviously, as the situation unfolds, as the dust settles, Apple's likely to make a few changes here and there over the next few months. That'll really give us a clear idea of the course forward. But just wanted to give everyone here some context as to what we're thinking and our strategies around this. So now I'm actually going to pass over to Harry, our head of global marketing, and he's going to talk a bit more from a marketing perspective, some of the strategies that you can employ today. So I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, cheers, Nath. So so far we've covered what the policy is, how it affects you, and how we're adapting to it. So now, as Nath mentioned, I want to chat a little bit about what you guys should be doing. And the good news is, from a high level, just keep doing what you're doing. Really now it's about staying the course with your marketing and focusing on delivering really great content and engaging experiences for your customers. And that's really what the Apple change is trying to get people to do as well. So really it's about knowing what your contacts' intentions are, and that could mean, are they looking at upsizing or investing or buying their first home? And delivering content that's relevant to that objective. So within ActivePipe, we've got a lot of good tools to help you do that. So obviously, as Nath showed before, we've got the intent panel on the dashboard, which shows you whether they're upsizing or downsizing, or potentially a seller or a first home buyer. And we've also got things like Smart Match as well, which identify the best properties for your contacts, and that's automatically going out and delivering those matched properties to your contacts. And that's unaffected by this change as well, as Nathan mentioned. So all that profiling is based on interactions rather than opens. One other thing to be mindful of is just, as Nathan mentioned before, open metrics. They're now changing to views in ActivePipe, but it's also good to be aware that your open rate may increase over the next few months as more Apple Mail devices start to be using this new privacy policy. It's also good to be mindful that some of your campaigns may be affected if they are triggered by open rate, or by opens rather. Not a lot of campaigns in ActivePipe are triggered by opens, but there are some. What this means is if you have a campaign that's running based on if a contact has opened one of your emails, I might want to send them a follow-up email. And this will continue to be still a useful campaign. However, it will now see anyone that uses Apple Mail's service as an open. So they all get also delivered the same follow-up email. Don't necessarily need to change anything with your campaigns. It's just good to be aware that that will be one small thing that's affected. And then finally, pretty much across all email marketing across the world, really, there's going to be a shift to more reliable metrics. So less of a focus on open rates, where open rates are good for being able to see if your subject line is good. And it's good to see who's opened your emails at some level, but really you want to be knowing who's engaging with you, who's engaging with your content. And that's where you need to look at things like clicks and landing page interactions and form submissions. And that's where the direction that we're heading in as ActivePipe, focusing more on these metrics, so that you can really see if the content you're sending is actually hitting the mark and people are actually engaging with it. Because at the end of the day, what you really want to know is who's the most engaged in your contact database, so you can pick up the phone and call them, or your agents can pick up the phone and call them. And in ActivePipe, you've actually already got that. So if you go to your dashboard, you've got the up and coming contacts and you've got your highly engaged contacts. And that's all based on interactions as well. So that's not based on open rates. It's unaffected by this change, and it's a really good place to start. If you want to start calling people that are engaged, that's where I'd be heading. And then finally, to wrap up, I would just say, while this new change has a few kind of small marketing tactical changes that you might kind of experience in your accounts, ultimately, in the long term, there's not a lot you need to do. And it's also going to help you deliver better experiences for your users, your clients rather. And that's always a good thing. And that's kind of what marketing is all about. It's what ActivePipe's all about. So this change is a good thing. And I think that's a good way to view it. And ultimately, keep doing what you're doing. There's not a whole lot that you're going to need to change about your current processes. I'll now hand it back over to Ash. I think we've got some time for some questions still.
Yeah, thanks, Harry, and thank you, Nathan. Yeah, we certainly have some time for Q&A. So QA, if anyone's got any kind of questions they want to ask, that can be done through the chat or direct chat or through the Q&A functionality here. Just open up to any. Eric, will I be able to view the webinar later? Yes, we'll make this available via video for those that have come in late. Yep. Natalie's asked same question. Yes, we'll send a link straight to you once we've got the recording of this after the webinar. The questions come in from Tim here on how are other companies handling this? That might be one for you, Nathan.
Yeah, it's a good question. And what Harry kind of touched on this a little bit, but this is really a global shift that's going to go on here. Pretty much every company in this industry is responding in the same way. Actually, an interesting point to touch on. The thing is, this is not the first or the only change that's affected open rates. This is kind of really in the industry the straw that's broken the camel's back. You've got already products out there that will cache images, so return opens aren't logged. You've got software out there like antivirus software that actually goes and scans your emails for you, triggering opens. So they've already been problematic. And I think this is really just kind of pushed the industry. So like Harry said, this is a good thing because it's kind of accelerating the industry to progress towards more meaningful metrics. And what we're seeing, it's pretty much consistent across all other players that we're going to work towards delivering better, more meaningful metrics to our consumers.
Terrific. Thanks, Nathan. Glenn Poley's asked, do we have instructions on how to pull out this data? A new user there. So yes, Glenn, you can email success@activepipe.com and they'll be able to help you out with that for sure.
We also have a really extensive knowledge center that answers a lot of questions. So if you're new, I definitely recommend heading there. You can basically just type in your question exactly, and it'll suggest articles to answer. There's a lot of great helpful advice in that.
All right, any more coming through? Okay, if you think of any other questions, post this call, feel free to hit us up on across our contact channels. It's just been shared with you there. So Harry's just posted that in the chat there. So that kind of feels like a wrap, guys. Thanks for jumping on. What can I say? We had an awesome turnout here today. And on behalf of the team here at ActivePipe, I'd like to personally thank you and from the team as well for joining us here. We look forward to rolling out some of these enhancements and continuing to be a part of your growth story as real estate agents, businesses and brokerages. So thank you.